then it just kept getting worse, and then it just kept going longer, and that's where the issue came in.
And we started hurting small business.
Yes.
And we started.
So starting out, that was the common sense thing to do because we didn't really know what it was and what it was going to do. But then after your first initial, because you can't tell me they didn't know from the get-go, or after a little bit of it, what was going on. Okay, and it was, and again, that's another whole story. But my point of view changed.
I've got you wound up.
Yeah. My point of view changed. What I was getting at is my point of view changed along with it. Like originally I was like, yeah, just stay home. It's okay to just stay home for a little bit. For a few days, let's just stay home, let this kind of settle, and then it just kept getting longer and longer and longer. And I kept, I travel for a living, so I had to keep, dealing with it out in public. People looking at you hateful because you're on the interstate driving and you didn't have your own mask on in your vehicle by yourself. But, that's another whole thing in and of itself. Yes, you got me wound up on that one. Thank you. I try to remain calm, and now I'm not calm. But yeah, so go ahead. Sorry, I was just trying to go along with your.
Yeah, but I'm not in favor of that from either direction.
No.
I want people to be able to say what is on their mind. I want the press. I want honest press. Like, I get frustrated with press that's biased on both sides. I get tired of far right leaning press. I get tired of far left leaning press. Like, I want to be able to just find places that I can hear the facts and I can make my own judgment and decision, because there's a good part of the time that it's not like, and I think most Americans, most people in general, I think, for the most part, I don't 100% agree with one side of the spectrum or the other on most things. Like, there's a lot of things in my life that, like, politically, I might be more to the right on this topic, and I might be more in the middle on this topic. I actually might be a little bit more liberal on this topic, and I might be, and it's not like I'm married to one side or the other. I do think
that there are some people like that.
This is just my own opinion. There are people like that, and I think it's the people that they just come across as crazy because they're just not willing to hear what anybody else has to say.
Right. Okay.
And I'm all about, like, if you can give me a good argument as to why you believe what you believe, that doesn't mean you're going to change my mind and I might agree with you, but I can certainly understand where you're coming from, how you're getting there. And then me, as somebody else who sees it differently, I can explain my side to you and tell you where I'm coming from and why I feel that way. And there's a good chance that in talking about it, you can be like, oh, you know what? Look, we both agree right here that we agree in this little circle right here. And you can decide that we agree here. And you know what? It could expand.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you could build on that.
To where you can act. But it's like nobody's willing to give anything. And we just, it's like we spin our wheels in the mud all the time, and it's frustrating. And part of that, I think, is because we need just to be able to get some information, to process it, to decide how we feel about something, to just stop listening to every commentary, or, me, I listen to a lot of commentary. But I do it because I want a lot of perspectives, because it's really hard to find unbiased information. So I feel like if I'm getting biased information, I want biased information from different directions, because I want to see what people are saying about something as a whole. And then that way I'm able to kind of like pick the facts out here and there where I can see and make my own decision on how I feel about it. I think that's the most important thing to do.
It is. And that's one thing, that's one thing, you and I have had this conversation several times. I loathe fearmongers. And honestly, that is what most people that have a platform do on both sides. oh, if we don't do this, these people are going to do this. And if these, and these people on this side are like, well, if we don't do this, these people are going to do this. And what it all boils down to is each side is trying to stop and abridge the other side's right to talk and their right to think on their own. And we can't do that. No. We can't. If we can't have a healthy conversation, we need to back up and try it again. I mean, and that's honestly the truth. I don't care if I don't agree with you on something. I'm willing to have a conversation with you. But if you start name calling or being hateful, I'm not going to have a conversation with you. I'm going to walk off. I'm not going to reciprocate.
You have to be careful because you get all wound up like you are.
I do.
You do come across like grouchy.
I do. But but see, here's the difference. The difference in me being grouchy is that I'm right. That's not how that works.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
But so I agree 130%. We need to get back to.
And you're doing better. I am doing better. Working on trying to quell the wanting to get louder and louder and louder and to actually hear what other people are saying.
Yes, I am. And because I was one of those that was always, I'm always right no matter what. But the older I get and the more that I spend time learning, I read stuff that I don't necessarily agree with. Mm-hmm. I read stuff I don't know anything about. Mm-hmm. And then it tweaks my interest and I'm like, oh, so let's see what this says. And then I intentionally go get something that's completely against what I just read because I want to see what their perspective is. And in that process, that's how we learn. And that's how we start a dialogue. Because I can now talk to people that I would have never agreed with before.
But see, to me, this First Amendment, so far, the parts we've gotten through, okay, this is just me. This is our founders basically saying, hey, we're putting this in here because we want you guys to be able to have a dialogue. Because it's saying they're not going to make a law respecting an establishment. We're not going to force a religion on you. Mm-hmm. You're free to choose what you want to. Or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So you can do whatever religious, if you have holy days, if you have, prayer times, we're not going to do anything that's going to keep you from being able to practice your religion. And we're not going to have posses of hunting each other down and saying, you're right or you're wrong. Right. Or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. Okay, so that they're saying they're not going to stop your right to free speech. They're not going to stop you from having consequences, but they're not going to stop you from being able to say what you want to say. They're not going to stop the press from being able to report on the things that need to be reported on that are factual. I do not think that the press should, there are things that come out where they're like, they knew that something wasn't right or they had a questionable source. That's the things that I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. But the freedom of them to be able to investigate and report on things. To me, that's saying, hey, you all need to be talking about things because conversations and seeing other people's opinions, that's how we govern ourselves. That's how we make decisions. And then this is the part that really of late I get to is it says, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Okay, before you go any further with that thought, let me throw this out. This is why I am a strong proponent of teaching actual American history in school. Okay, because the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution, every one of them deals with things that the colonists had to deal with, dealing with England before the founding, before we actually had to just send the Declaration of Independence and go to war. And that's, if you don't know like the every one, especially the First Amendment and the Second Amendment, are two of the biggest for, and the third one, with the having to house soldiers. All of these amendments are all historically based, which is why they wrote them the way they wrote them, so that the government couldn't get so big for itself like England did. And like, you couldn't disagree with England without going to prison. And a lot of times you never made it past the prison door. You got hung in the courtyard before you ever got there without a trial. A lot of times it was because somebody heard it, and that's what they went with. So go on with your peaceably assembling, because this is very good.
Well, peaceably assembling, I'm okay. Personally, I gone to protests. I have probably, yeah. I guess you would call them that. I mean, I've gone to like meeting. I've gone to Washington a couple of times to hear some people speak, like at the Capitol steps, and gone to, when I was younger and lived in Kentucky, I've gone to the state capitol in Kentucky. I mean, we live in the capital of West Virginia, so like I've driven by there some, like, when people are out there. I think you have a right to peaceably assemble. And honestly, around here, I don't know that I've ever encountered anything that I would call a violent protest here. Like, maybe you could jog my memory, but I don't think I've ever really
The
encountered
only violent
anything
protest you've
violent.
ever had to encounter was me outside with the lawnmower or the weed eater.
Well,
Those
I
are
mean,
usually violent
I
protests.
will say, like, when I was in Washington, there were people that disagreed with some of the people that were speaking in different little areas where we were walking around, and they would walk by and they would yell something or whatever. But I think they have freedom of speech. Like, you can say what you want to say. It doesn't matter.
You can yell what you want.
I mean,
yeah.
I didn't agree with them, but okay, so. But where I draw the line is, it's not peaceable if you're blocking traffic, keeping people from getting to work or their jobs or picking up their kids at daycare, or it's not peaceable if you're throwing rocks and if you're spitting on people. And I mean, I'm sorry, that is the opposite of the definition of peaceable to me. Peaceable is being peaceful. It's holding your sign. It's saying things. It's using your megaphone. It's having a picket line. It's I'm peaceable assembly. I'm all about it. But if in my opinion, I guess, and what I read into what this is saying is, if you're infringing on other people's rights to be able to go about their business and what they have to do, if you're infringing on, let's just say, okay, I guess an example would be, let's just say, I'm seeing somebody that is being arrested at Walmart because they shoplifted, and maybe I have information that this person wasn't the person who was shoplifting or whatever. I'm not going to get in the way of the police officer arresting this person or anything. I'm going to take a minute and I might say at some point, excuse me, I'm a witness, I have some information. I'm not going to grab police officers and try to keep them from doing their job of, and I guess maybe that's just me being naive, but I have confidence that, if you're innocent and if you should be able to produce the information that they need, and if you're wrongly detained, then you're going to be released. There's honestly nothing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong, but people are detained all the time. Imagine if we're at a church service and somebody breaks a window while you're in the church service. Somebody throws something through a window or whatever. Well, they may detain everybody in the sanctuary for a time so they can ask everybody what they saw. What being detained is not necessarily infringing on your rights because they for their investigation they have to detain you, but it's not like you're being arrested and charged.
Because how many
If you-
people, if they let you go, how many of you would actually talk to the police officer later?
Right.
Because
And
most of them wouldn't.
remember. Or remember.
Exactly.
Like a lot of
Exactly.
times they want it to be fresh. Or I'm also thinking like, I mean, another example I would think of being detained. What if they're doing like DUI checkpoints and you've got traffic backed up and they're stopping and they have a flashlight and they're looking in your car? That's you being detained for a minute. You're answering their questions appropriately.
Well, a
and you're-
prime example.
And you're moving on. Like do I like those things? No, it's as annoying to me as it is to anybody else because I have a life to live and I have things to do. But I also know that you need to do things peaceably and in order.
Well, a prime example, going with like the DUI checklist and stuff like that. I drive for a living, so there are times I pull over on the side of the road when I get sleepy, but it's not like I don't need to take a nap. I just need to get out of the vehicle for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a prime example, I was out one night walking around behind my vehicle, and it was cold, but that was the whole point of why I did it, because I took my coat off intentionally to try to wake myself up a little bit, because I just had a few more miles to get to my exit that I needed. And so I get out and I'm walking. Well, as I'm out there walking around my vehicle and just, kind of just getting cooled down and waking up a little bit, a vehicle going the other way spotlights me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who spotlights you on the interstate? A police officer, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I know this dude's going to turn around and come back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could have jumped in my vehicle and taken off. And then there would have been all kinds of crap going on because he would have been trying to hunt and find me.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could do what I did. And, after I got through walking around, because he had to go up a little bit to get turned around, I get back in my vehicle and I sit there and I wait. And then he pulls in behind me. He's got his lights on as he should because it's dark.
Mm-hmm.
And, he comes up and we have a conversation. We talk, and the whole time he's talking to me, he shines his light in my eyes to make sure I wasn't drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then he shines it in the back seat of my vehicle to see what all I had. We're having a conversation. Yes, I was detained from completing my drive, but I did it safely. He did it safely. And I waited on him. That's the kind of detaining but
that's where I think we're like on some of it we're missing the mark. Like we're thinking you're infringing on our freedoms because you're detaining us. Where do I think that law enforcement is always perfect in the way that they handle it?
Absolutely not.
No.
They're humans.
I think that there is fallibility
Yes.
in anything, and people can get heated in the moment, make a rash decision. Are they trained to not do that as often? Yeah.
But they're still human. That's the thing.
But I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, as a nurse, I've had literal poop thrown at me by a patient.
I'm glad I didn't know about that or I would be in prison.
Okay. But the circumstance was, you've got somebody with dementia that doesn't know where they are. They think they've been kidnapped. They think they're you're holding them hostage and they're wanting but I go back to did it make me mad? It absolutely made me mad. Did I want to do something about it? Yeah, I did. But then when you look at the circumstance, this person didn't realize what
they were doing,
what situation they were in and what they were doing.
Right.
I'm sure had they been in their right mind, they would have been mortified to know.
Well, you've told stories about older people that's having dementia and cuss like a sailor. Well, and cuss like a sailor, and their kids are like, "Mommy" or "Daddy," because that's not their normal response.
But that's what I'm saying. You got to take the situation. But the thing is, you're just if you go beyond peaceable, you're just going to escalate it. It's just going to go places you don't want it to go. And I just don't think, are there bad cops out there? Yeah. Are there bad nurses out there? Yeah. Are there bad teachers out there? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are there, there's bad everything out there. But are there a lot of good ones? Yeah. Are there more good ones than bad?
Yes.
And so my thinking is if you are just peaceable about it and you contain your wits and you just don't take everything personally, then things are going to go much better.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
And I know a lot of things right now are heated in our country. And I know that a lot of things, you want to blame it on one person or the other, or this person was president and this person's president. And this, okay, fine. But it took us a lot of decades to get where we are. It's not just
One man's
person.
fault.
It
Exactly.
is not
Exactly.
just one bunch. It's not like we have dug a hole for ourselves over a long period of time. And it's not going to get any better if we don't start having some normal conversations about things that we can agree on and start there and move forward. And our Constitution is a good one. And like our founding fathers were not stupid.
No.
And we need to get back to just having some rational conversations and looking at what it says and looking at what things mean. And even like you and I, like we don't always agree. And I still love you. And I still feel like we're on the same page.
We are. Because you can
but-
disagree and still have a peaceable conversation and agree to disagree on things. I mean, there are things that you and I just vehemently don't agree on, and some things we just don't talk about because we know that we can't have that conversation and be civil. We just don't talk about
It's mostly you, but
it. And here's where we start disagreeing. But no, you're not. But and a lot of that, like sometimes she gets leery because I'll be like, "Hey, you want to talk? Like let's talk about this or something." And she's like, "Because I have given her reason in the past. Because I'm very, very."
He's a very black and white kind of person.
Very.
And
I struggle with seeing different shades and different views.
You struggle with seeing it from how anybody else could see it from a different perspective.
I mean, because my perspective is right. Why would you want to be wrong? And how could you even defend being wrong? That's what I see. Okay. So that, but you also, and if you look at everybody who has a disagreement in that eye, it's so much easier to have that conversation. Okay? Because I may think that you are an absolute idiot, but you feel like that you're absolutely right. I know that you're absolutely wrong, but you also know I'm absolutely wrong. So together, we've already got something right here that we can work on. We both think the other one is wrong. So now we can build on this.
But the problem is people get so mad
Exactly.
about somebody thinking they're wrong.
Exactly.
And I don't necessarily, I think that a lot of answers are not right and wrong.
No.
I think if you look at the state of the world and where most people want things to be and want how you want to, I want to see people flourish and be healthy and happy and families to grow. I want to see good things for people. I think the majority of people want for there to be good things. I think we all think there's different ways to get there. And I think we've become obsessed with
our
making
way.
People do it the
Our
way
way.
we think
Yes.
it needs to be done.
Yeah,
and then that's making everybody else mad. When I think if we were to just sit down and say, what's your picture of a perfect world? What do you see happening? Not how do we get there, but what do you see? What do you see as the end? If you were to just paint a mural on the wall of what it would look like, what do you see? And I really think a lot of people, probably the majority of people, see the same thing. So that is a good place to start to be able to say, that's where I want to get to. But I don't necessarily think that me taking your exit off the highway is the way that we should get there. I don't think, that you should make A, B, and C do this because, and I think that's where a lot of our arguments get from is it's not that we all don't want the same thing.
Yeah.
I think most people want the same thing.
Most
We
people want a
disagree
peaceful, good life.
on how
Yes.
to get there.
Yes. And here's another good view, another good way, like I was describing earlier, you're 100%, you believe 100% that you are 100% correct. I believe that I'm 100% correct and that you are 100% wrong, and the same as you feel that I'm 100% wrong. But there's also another way to look at it. And this is the view that actually started me looking at other people's point of view, because I was asked a simple question once. And it's a very wise question. And I was asked this by a kid, believe it or not, a kid. The kid asked me, how do I know, said, how do you know that the color blue that you see is the same color blue that I see?
Mm-hmm.
That is a profound question from like a little 6-year-old. This kid's going to grow up to be a philosopher at some point. So that's a good point of view, and it goes right along with what you're saying. So, our two colors of blue may not be the same, but we'll both profess that that's blue. But we need to get there. We gotta meet.
Right.
And that's where and that's why they wrote the First Amendment the way they did. You're exactly right. These people were wise. They really were. And they wrote the Constitution in such a way that things that they hadn't thought of would still be covered, or give you a way to deal with it. Like they gave you a way to add amendments to the Constitution, to add basic government laws. And then they also gave you a way to get rid of them. Like the amendment, where you're not allowed to have alcohol.
I think that,
and then they realized, well, that was a bad idea. And so then they had to come up with another amendment that repealed that amendment.
I think that if you want to focus on anything, like my focus right now, I think would be, we really, really need to be like letting our elected officials know that we're not happy that they're not actually doing their jobs. They're not putting forward legislation that helps the people or that solves the problem. They're yelling about all these problems that we have. But you see very few people actually have something on paper of a problem and a way that they are proposing to solve the problem, and then they all vote on what this person is like. Why are we not doing that? Like, all it is a bunch of yelling and fighting, and I'm like, for one, they should be examples to our kids, to our country, but I think if you want to be mad, if you want to, if you want to peaceably assemble, if you want to let your grievances be known, like this is talking about, if you want you to redress grievances, those are the things we need to be doing. We need to be focused on saying, hey, we elected you, we hired you, we picked you because you said you were going to be the best at this job. You were going to do this because, why are you not putting forth legislation? Why are you, whether they listen to you or not, like, don't let their answer be, well, they aren't listening or they want this. Well, why aren't you writing it? Why aren't you drawing up the law or the bill? Why aren't you putting the work into it? Make them look bad by working so hard.
And don't just, and see, and that's where a lot of them come from too, is because they all just gather around the same people that think the same. If if you've got something you really truly think is the next golden idea, then get somebody from a different point of view and have those, like you said, have those meetings. Let's talk about it.
But
let's try to and that way, when it's approached and it's presented, we'll say on the House floor, you've got, right now it's Democrat and Republicans. You've got a DNR backing it.
Mhm.
Then, people are like, it should, if everybody else is mature, should give everybody else polls and be like, okay, so these two have sat and talked, and they're doing a joint thing here. Maybe this is something we need to look at.
Mhm.
And you're exactly right. We need to let our elected representatives know.
And for them to stop playing the blame game. And then here's the other thing, if they're not doing it, if they're not serving the people, we need to be getting these people out.
Yes.
We need, and this is me talking to me too. We need to be willing to, if called, to do that, to serve, to be somebody that would serve, that would do that job, to step up and say, I'm willing to throw my hat in the ring. I'm willing to, I'm willing to be that person that, and for these people, no, I don't believe that our founding fathers intended for politics to be a profession for your entire life. Some of the best politicians and most of them have been state politicians that I have encountered have been people who are professionals who have gone and served a term or two and done a good job, and then they go back to their life. And I think that's what they intended, because those are the people, you're living real life, you're doing the things, you're trying to, and those are the people who have their finger on the pulse of what's happening in the country. If you're so insulated and this is all you've ever known, how are you really representing anybody?
You're not. Because you're never there. Because technically,
a lot of opinions in this talking to you, didn't I?
Mm-hmm. But having this, like doing this, if that is your full-time job, because if you're doing your job right, you need to be there a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in Congress, you know what I mean? Like, you can't just go fly in every 2 days and do your thing. You need to be there a lot, because you need to be having meetings, especially if you're trying to do your job right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're always there, then you're not meeting, like you said, you're not keeping your finger on the pulse of your constituents, the people that elected you. And a lot of times people just, we know, because, sometimes that's how we make our votes when we go to vote, is by name recognition.
In our state, I'm just saying, some of our elected officials, there was a name, and then there was a child of that person, and then there's a child of that person. And it's like, well, I'm
going to be honest with you. The last election that I voted in, which was the last election, by the way, I just thought I would throw that out there. If I recognized your name, I didn't vote for you.
I'm handing that back over.
But thank you, Jessica, for your time. And we only got to cover the First Amendment. We kind of had the second one on the list too. So maybe I can coerce you into. That didn't sound good, did it? Maybe I can talk you into being a guest again.
We'll see. Maybe
on here at some point. And we can talk about other parts of the Constitution. Maybe I'll leave this for you so you can peruse it and you can come up with a topic next time. I'll have to approve it. My board of directors will have to approve it.
Will it have to be 100% right?
Yeah. Gee. But thank you, Jessica, for your time.
You're welcome.
And thank you for your view. And this was a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
It's better than just me talking to myself, because I like having different perspectives. Even though your perspectives are absolutely wrong, it is your right to be absolutely wrong.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Makes me feel better.
Does it make you feel better? Great. But thank you all. And you all hit that like, follow, subscribe, all the things, and hit that bell so that you get notifications of our next videos. And we'll talk to you later. And again, thanks for watching Let's Talk.
Bye.
Gotta find the button.